Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you join Registrar Court for Mitigate Risk, Navigate Adverse Event Management for U.S. Cosmetics. With FDA enforcement in effect, many companies are still unsure of how to handle the new adverse event requirements. We look forward to guiding you through these requirements today and providing you with tips for implementing an adverse event intake system. I'm pleased to introduce our resident cosmetic expert, Jaclyn Bellomo, Senior Director of Cosmetic Science and Regulatory Affairs, who will share key MOCR provisions that you must follow and how they impact your business operations. A seasoned, respected key figure in the cosmetic industry, Jaclyn will guide you through challenges with the new adverse event requirements and handling serious adverse events. Throughout this webinar, feel free to write any questions in the Q&A box, and we've saved time at the end to answer them. Without any further ado, Jaclyn, take it away.
Thank you so much, Alexis, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm very excited to talk about adverse events under MOCR with you today. We're going to do a quick overview of adverse event requirements for cosmetics. We're also going to talk about requirements for receiving adverse events and upcoming deadlines for cosmetic labels, and then also some process and tips for implementation of an adverse event intake system. Whether you have one already in place or need to put one in place in very, very few months, we want to make sure you guys are ready and prepared to do so. We're also going to do a adverse event management software demonstration. Registrar Corp has developed their own adverse event software to really help regulatory and quality teams manage receiving, record keeping, and even reporting serious adverse events to FDA. So we'd love to show you that software, especially for our teams on here that might not have a system in place yet. And then, of course, an interactive Q&A. So make sure to drop all your questions in the question box, and I'll be happy to answer them at the end. A little bit about Registrar. We are the world's largest FDA compliance company. We have a team of global experts in MOCR compliance, and we serve over 1,000 cosmetic companies for MOCR compliance. We have completed over 26,000 product listings in the past 3 months, and we are the only company that meets that ISO 27001 standard for data security and to protect trade secrets. So very important as we discuss adverse event management today. And the personal information that you collect, medical information that you collect, our software, our systems are all ISO 27001 compliant. So many of you are probably wondering, why are adverse event requirements happening now, right? Many of us might be surprised that, adverse events in cosmetics have not had any requirements up until now. But there's a lot of factors that go into place to understanding why adverse event requirements were in MOCR. The number of cosmetic products that are in market has exploded over the last 5 years. I won't even say 10 years, the last 5 years. And now more and more people are using cosmetic products, right? We have children, we have young teens, we have men. I was just in Target recently, and The Rock, a pro wrestler and actor, launched a hair care and beard line. So things like that we are just seeing pop up more and more. Consumers are also using more products more than ever before, right? So it's not just your shampoo and conditioner, it's shampoo, conditioner, hair mask, body wash, your foundations, your eyeshadows, your mascaras, your skin products. I mean, Skin Routine now have more than 14 products, right, to get through the day. So it's very important to understand that, the involvement of all these different products when you touch your skin, right, and when these products interact with each other, what that could do, right, to someone who has never had any exposure to these type of products before. So that increased risk of health-related events and adverse event has also really exploded in industry as well. The number and types of ingredients and chemicals in cosmetics products has also greatly increased, right? So there is more innovation in the types of ingredients and chemicals and combinations and blends that brands are using. And it's important to understand, with these new ingredients, with these new chemicals, with these new blends, right? What does that bring to the table? What do those combinations, especially new ones, have an effect on the skin and on people who are using them? Marketing claims, always the hugest hit in cosmetics. What can I say without getting myself in trouble? What can I claim? And a lot of what we are seeing is that we are seeing more clinical testing be done in cosmetic products, right? So the ingredients, these stories have gotten stronger. Dosage levels have gotten higher. People are pushing the limits to make sure when you use their cosmetic product that you see results. And that is really important to understand, right? Like to understand the instructions of using those products and what that means on a large scope. Use once to twice a week to once to twice daily. Cosmetic companies are also, using these new ingredients with limited safety history. We all want to, go after silicones and go after synthetic ingredients, but they have a long history of being safe, right? There's a lot of products that have been on market for years and shown to be safe. As we get into these new scopes of these botanicals, these extracts, there's very limited safety history and safety information of how these products will react with your skin, especially when used in doses and applications that probably weren't accustomed to being used in previously for products. The rate of new product launches have gotten faster. As we have been on this call already, there's probably 10 new launches as we were talking. So there is less time for testing, and a lot of brands are relying on post-market surveillance, right, to see how their products are reacting in the market. Most testing that is done on small groups of the demographic, right? So we have 50 people for RIPT tests, maybe 100 for RIPT tests, right? And then we release a product to market that hits thousands and millions of people, right? So what does that mean on a larger scope, especially if you have certain skin conditions, if you have pre-existing, health conditions? What does that mean when you use these products, right? And then consumer pressure for ethical, non-animal testing and sustainable testing means kind of relying on potentially less effective safety testing methods, and maybe not having a full scope of what it would be on an actual, human eye, mucous membrane of the eye, human, we do RIPT on human skin, but does it really touch every single type of skin that we would encounter when we're using a cosmetic product? With MOCRA now requires companies to be able to receive adverse events through contact information on the label, record all adverse events, whether serious or non-serious, that are reported to the brand from consumers, and report all serious adverse events to FDA, which they can investigate further to decide if an inspection, a recall, or other actions are needed to safeguard consumers. So that's the most important piece to take away from here, is that FDA is here to protect the public health, right? And in so much that we have seen in recent news, there's a lot of people after cosmetic products and their safety, right? And what they're able to provide to the mass markets, right? About a product being safe. More, publicly is the talc lawsuits, the talc issues. That was a very serious event that occurred. That was almost basically overlooked for years because no one ever believed that a cosmetic product can actually cause death, right? And that is where we have to start thinking about as we move into these new regulations, as we move into MOCRA, right? What are the products that we have? How are they affecting our consumers? What type of safety precautions are we taking? In addition, if we have done our due diligence, if we have done every piece of testing imaginable, what does that mean, right? When we still have health related adverse events happen to our customers. So it's very, very important to understand, right? So what is an adverse event? FDA defines an adverse event as any health-related event associated with the use of a cosmetic product that is adverse, right? So this is irritation, a rash, a burn, allergic reaction, hair loss, right? These are all things that are health-related. One thing I could tell you is that someone using a cosmetic product, a personal care product, right? It is going on them. It is going on the human body. So it is very personal. People are very sensitive to the products that they use. So imagine using a product that you think is okay to use and your body has some type of health related event that is adverse. That escalation, just times 10, right? Anything, especially when it comes to your face, anything that comes to your hair, the physical appearance that happen, the physical thing that happens to your appearance with an adverse event is very personal, very sensitive. So we have to understand that our as a brand, our customers are looking for a way to contact that information, to have a brand tell us exactly what happened, right? And I think it's really important to understand that having a proper adverse event management system, intake system helps you do that. There's no more days left of here is a gift card and here is a refund, right? These all have to be properly documented and in serious adverse event cases reported to FDA. So serious adverse event, we've always lived under the impression that FDA takes this as death, life-threatening experience, inpatient hospitalization, persistent or significant disability, birth defect. I mean, these are serious. But the recent years, right, of what we've seen happen in cosmetics has led FDA to add provisions to this definition specific to cosmetic products, things that we see in industry that are serious, right? And this is serious or persistent rashes, second or third degree burns, significant hair loss, persistent or significant alteration of appearance, right? So these are detrimental. These are serious adverse events. And this updated serious adverse event definition is what is going to move cosmetics into a completely different space for handling adverse events. This is already in effect, right? All companies should be able to record any adverse events that come in, report any serious adverse events to FDA. So I can't stress enough that if you are not doing this, to really sit down with your management team, sit down with your quality team, and have a discussion about how to handle this. Right now we are not in the space of FDA going and attacking every single adverse event and serious adverse event that has come in. But this will occur and this will become public, right? And think of all the publications out there already that grab onto these stories because they want the consumers to know when a brand is not doing what they're supposed to be doing to keep their consumers safe. Adverse events is new to cosmetics, and I'm going to say that. A lot of people who work in spaces with high risk cosmetic products probably do have systems in place. So your hair dye people, you are going to have something in place because it is a high risk product. But I'm going to say that it's new. FDA hasn't even developed a portal for cosmetics an adverse event, just yet. They are currently adopting the MedWatch form that's used for drugs and medical devices. So you will see a form to submit that is probably very unfamiliar to you. Most of the customers that we talk to that use our AEM system actually say to us, we have never had to fill this out. And I think a lot of brands are going to experience that same type of feeling, and I can't, I can commiserate with that a lot because this is going to be a huge adjustment to how these health related events are handled. Adverse event, reports require specific information in regard to the health related event. FDA does require to have information about the patient, about the product, about what happened with the adverse event, your investigation, your review, right? Was this an isolated event? Was this something that needs to have further attention? Is this a recall, right? So all of these things go through a process that's been well established with drugs and medical devices, but not yet with cosmetics, right? And most companies don't have a system in place and need a lot of help understanding the risks, the implications, not just, with brand image, but financial. If you have a huge public health concern, you can't investigate it properly. You cannot determine what caused a serious adverse event, right? What is your only option? Is it to recall? Is it to take that product off the shelf? Is it to stop manufacturing? And this is why it's so important to have this information, because if you do not have this information when you're reviewing adverse events, you're going to make decisions, you're going to make calls that are drastic because you need to protect, right, the public health, you need to protect your brand. You can't have this escalate further. Next, we're going to go into the actual requirements and what they mean, right? And you're going to, you'll hear me say receiving, record keeping, reporting. But there is a step in between of that review and investigation, which I just spoke about, which is so crucial, right? Crucial in your record keeping and crucial into your reporting to FDA. And it's very underestimated how much a review and investigation takes, how much has to go into it, because when you get a consumer adverse event, right, the last thing you want to feel is panic. And I think that we naturally just panic because we think the worst is to happen. But I'm going to show you a little bit about, when we get to that section, what that really means. So first up is receiving. Companies will have to include contact information on both primary and secondary packaging starting December 29th, 2024. We are September 24th. If you do not have contact information on your label right now, you should be a little bit worried, because printing houses and printing labels does take some time. So adding that information now for this December 29th date can be very stressful for a lot of companies if you have not already planned to do so. The FDA has provided the provisions of how to put this contact information. So it has to be a physical address, meaning a domestic street address, a domestic phone number. And we were lucky in cosmetics, we are allowed an electronic contact information, and this could be in the form of a website or a QR code. No other industry as of right now is allowed to have this electronic contact information. So this is brand new to FDA as well. Lots of studies have been done for the US when it comes to technology. You know, how many people have access to a phone, access to the internet? Could this be an option versus someone writing a letter and mailing it to a physical address about an adverse event, or calling and leaving a message or speaking to someone about an adverse event, right? And this electronic contact information is going to become really key into when we go into our AEM demo later, to understand how fast you can get this information, how easily you can manage this information. Very important to note too, this electronic content information, when you say website, when you say QR codes, right? This should not be the consumable page that people purchase products, right? It should be the page where a consumer can go and know they are reporting an adverse event. And I say that because think about when you have a problem with a product, and whether it be a cosmetic, whether it be, furniture deliveries or Amazon deliveries, right? When you cannot get in touch with someone, when you cannot go directly to that page to do what you need to do because you've had an adverse event, that frustration, right, will come out in different forms and different avenues, right? So it's very important to understand that having a page where a consumer goes and there's like sale, 20% off, new product launch, right? This is not a place where they can go and report an adverse event, right? This is a place where they're going to get bombarded with consumable, saleable goods and not have the ability to report their adverse event. And their next option would probably be to go into social media, to go into TikToks, or to go directly to FDA and report. And that is not what a brand wants. You want to control the information. You want to have the information come to you in a way that you're able to manage it. And I cannot stress that enough, because the frustration that a consumer can receive for not being able to talk to someone about a health-related event that is very personal will escalate the problem a little bit deeper and a little bit further, which of course as a brand you don't want. The review and investigation, right? The requirement of this really has to do with the record keeping and the reporting. So it doesn't say requirement to review and investigate, but as a quality regulatory person, this is what you should be doing in order to make sure your records have all the right information, your report to FDA has all the right information. This is so that the adverse event report is properly reviewed and investigated to determine if the serious adverse event is in need of reporting. As I've read that serious adverse event definition, right, you heard significant hair loss, you heard persistent, right? What does that mean to each consumer, right? And that is the part that has to be reviewed and investigated. As someone with a lot of hair, if I lost a handful of hair, I'm probably not going to consider that significant. Someone with less hair, lost a handful of hair, that's going to be significant. So these are all a part of the process, right? This is all consumer perception of what they perceive as persistent, as significant. And then as a brand, how you determine to handle that degree of persistence or significant is also how you can review and do your investigation. Investigation doesn't just live with regulatory and quality, it will live with other departments. And we kind of did this graph for you guys to understand, right? So there's going to be a quality, a legal piece, a procurement. There could be marketing involved, right? What did you say on pack? What were the instructions? Manufacturing, did you guys do all of your batch release, testing correctly? Where's micro? Where's viscosity? Where's pH? Legal, right? If this turns into a legal matter where somebody is saying you need to pay for my surgeries and my hospital visits, right? That is huge. Medical experts that you need to bring in because they need to evaluate what was actually happening to the consumer, right? The doctor's notes, the medical notes that were brought in. So this is multiple departments, and they could be domestic, they could be international, global teams. So it could be very difficult to manage if you have this type of process not locked down, and you don't have the right people to share information with or get information from. The multiple departments might also need their time to do their specific research on a product, right? So if you have Google Drives and Dropboxes and folders all over the place, that's not going to help you execute the review and investigation in a timely manner. As a reminder, you have 15 business days to report to FDA a serious adverse event. That is not a lot of time. We have already experienced a ton of our customers that have went through this. When that clock starts ticking, it becomes very overwhelming. And if you don't have the information, you don't feel prepared, it could really slow down your process, and it can lead you to make decisions that are made out of pure timing, not the actual information. So very, very important, the research that has to go beyond receiving that adverse event, and teams to get involved. And I can't tell you enough, if you do not have a proper intake system, what that means to that time. You might spend a whole 3 days trying to figure out who has to get involved, what has to be done, what has to be, written up, provided. It could be a lot to handle. Record keeping. So, everyone does a lot of record keeping for a lot of things, financials, for sales, for formulas. Now, when an adverse event comes in, you need to keep the record for 6 years. Small businesses for 3 years. But it's important that when FDA can request this information for an adverse event, this could be at any time. It doesn't need to be during an inspection. They have provisions of what they're allowed to request, the information they're allowed to request. They can't ask financial data, sales data, anything like that. But they're allowed to ask about safety substantiation. They're allowed to ask about the consumer report. They're allowed to ask about your review and assessment of the adverse event, especially if it was reported originally as a serious adverse event and wasn't reported to FDA and deemed by your team a non-serious adverse event. What made you come to that conclusion? Where's the review? Where's the investigation? And even larger picture, right, is when we have consumers or products that come into media light, right? And they are in public eye, and FDA then also takes an interest in them, right? Is in every product category, everything in that product category, brand in that product category kind of gets, a little bit of a review because they're worried about that product in general or that product category. It's important that you have your documentation prepared. Having been through many FDA audits myself, I can tell you when I'm organized, when I'm prepared. I can give myself a deep breath and say that I have done the due diligence and the best of my ability to give the records that I have, the organization I have of testing, right? The last thing you need to be doing is running around trying to figure out what documents need to be sent, right? And this is where this comes into huge play of having a system in place, what records need to be kept and where they're kept. I am guilty of keeping things on my desktop. It's just a natural thing. They should not live there. They should live somewhere protected, right? They should live somewhere, especially if it's medical data, personal data, reports, they should live in a system that's protected. The people who have access to this data are allowed to have access, right? And that's the most important piece to take away from this. Lastly, FDA reporting. So, those who have experienced the MedWatch form, you're probably thinking this is so much easier. I can do this. But when you experience the MedWatch form from a cosmetic standpoint, it's like, wait, what exactly do I need? Because this is asking for a lot of information that has nothing to do with my product. FDA says that they are going to build a portal specifically for cosmetic adverse events, that they're going to have a form specifically for adverse events. But until they do, you are to use the MedWatch form, the 3500A form, and you are to email FDA at a specific email address your serious adverse event reports. And this will include your MedWatch form, any substantial data needed, safety testing, a statement from your company, right, of what occurred and what happened, and any information that will help you kind of provide your stance and what happened and your next steps, right? And that's what FDA wants to know, right? Do they need to get involved? Do you have this under control? Is it something they need to get involved with? Another really important piece of information is that when you report that, that 15-day deadline of information, any new material or medical information that comes in, you need to also report in that 15-day business deadline as well. And I say that because, as we all know, investigations just don't end at 15 business days. It's not like 15 business days, I report it and we're over, right? Communication with that consumer can continue to go on. So you'll have to additionally report up to 1 year of everything related with that adverse event. And especially if you have a product that has multiple adverse events coming in, right? That could be a lot to handle, a lot to manage, and being able to hit that deadline every single time that new information comes in. Currently, FDA, is understanding of this process, right? So they're understanding that this is new to cosmetics. They're understanding they're using an email. They're understanding the MedWatch. That will not always be the case, right? And that is why it's so important to get a system in place to understand what's required of you as a brand, as a responsible person, what you need to handle and what you need to provide to FDA. Again, there's always the ability to offer too much information, but I always believe the more that you do, the more that you can validate your reasons, your choices, especially when it comes to quality. It's important to show that process, right? That thought process, the systematic process of how you came as a responsible person to this conclusion. And that is all in this reporting to FDA, right? It is all important to show how, as a brand, I protected, I did the safety, I did the due diligence, I did everything to make sure I was releasing a safe product to market. Unfortunately, something did happen to a consumer. It's isolated, but we're taking care of it. We're understanding that we might need to put a warning for certain people with skin sensitivities. We'll have to do, additional sensitive skin studies, right? Those are the things that you have to see as a brand, that are important to explain when you're reporting things to FDA, and then also important as a post-market surveillance tool for your brand, to understand how that product affects when it's in market. So we're going to talk a little bit about process and tips and for implementation. We have this great graphic. Our team wanted to make sure everyone had an understanding of this flow, and what a really good intake management system looks like, right? So consumer has an adverse event. Consumer uses a QR code. We're gonna harp on this QR code and URL, and I'll show you why. And they will, fill out questionnaires or form or give the information that's needed. It's going to go into a platform, go into your system, and then that's where it's managed through the review investigation product. And then if needed, report to FDA. And then you're not done yet, right? And then record keep everything. So it's very, very important to understand this flow process. And this works both with if you have a physical address, if you have a phone number, right? That does not change the process. It's important to understand these step-by-step pieces that have to happen so that you can properly manage an adverse event when it comes in. So is your company ready to take on adverse events, right? And I did this kind of breakdown for everyone so you can kind of understand what you should be asking yourself as a quality person, regulatory person, what you should be asking your team, and what you should be asking your brand, right? And your management. Like, are we really ready to take this on? So receiving, do you have this on both primary and secondary packaging? Where reports are received should be checked daily, right? So if you are using a physical address, is someone checking that mailbox? If you're using a phone number, is someone checking checking those messages? Electronic address, is the fastest way to receive reports from consumers. So definitely, if you have nothing in place, this might be the best avenue for you to take on, because it will be the fastest and easiest way to get those reports in. You have to consider small packaging and limited space for labels, right? Because if you are using a physical address, you need to add in that physical address. You need to add in the phone number, right? So where is this going to go on a label? We are already so stretched when it comes to cosmetics, what's required on a label. So adding one more piece, everyone's probably like, where's this going to go? How is this going to look? So start considering those small, labels, especially like bottom labels of lipstick, right? That little circle bottom label, there's not a lot of space. So where is this going to go? And then prepare how you're going to manage these reports as they come in for a variety of sources, right? And I say that because you can have a phone number, you can have a physical address, you can have an email address, and people will still try to contact you different ways, right? So you have to make sure wherever you are going to receive these adverse events that you have a system in place to be able to take those in. Record keeping, the record keeping should always involve the consumer report, right? The original consumer report, and any record of communication with the reporter or with the consumer that had the adverse event. And it's important to mention that because, what they say originally and then what gets built out as you do your investigation is very crucial to how you make your decisions and how FDA will view your decisions of how they came in. Reports of the, responsible person, the brand's assessment of the report is also key here. Any hospital doctor relevant lab data is very important to understand, right? So if a consumer has an adverse event and provides you with a doctor's note and says that the product caused the issue, right? You want to get your own medical experts to review this. You want images, you want pictures, you want to have an understanding how this happened and how your product directly made this adverse event happen if it did, right? Safety testing and critical clinical data, very, very crucial, right? So if you have something where 10 people are breaking out in a rash, right? And they are the exact demographic that you tested on your RIPT, right? You can start making conclusions of how did this pass all the safety testing in RIPT? What is different about these 10 people that are breaking out in a rash? Is it a quality product issue? Is it actually the people's skin reacting to the product? So those type of safety testing will also support that was done prior to that launch of that product. And also it's a requirement of MOCRA. So everyone who has that safety data information, that is a part of this record keeping, right? To show you did your safety substantiation, you did your studies to show it'd be safe. Images of the adverse event, right? So very important, significant hair loss. What did the hair look like before? What did the hair look like now? Determining from a medical professional how that can directly relate to significant to non-significant hair loss. And then manufacturing documents or reports. So if it is a micro issue, if it's a pH issue that's burning people's skin, thing of that nature, what was that batch? What was that bulk when you released it? Did it have the right specifications? FDA also, with this record access is going to have the authority to access these records relating to all these cosmetic adverse events, right? They could do so during an inspection, or they can do so if they believe that there's a serious public health threat or of a serious adverse event effect. They can request, if the product is believed to be adulterated and that exposure presents a threat or serious adverse event consequence. And they can also request a written list of ingredients in the product's fragrance or flavors. Everyone on this call, I'm sure, understands that flavors and fragrances are the spotlight of why people have reactions, right? And why they have adverse events reactions. And this is still getting uncovered. And it's not just, let's be very aware, fragrance and flavors have their own combinations and they have their own, profiles. Those allergens are a whole separate discussion, right, of the actual ingredients and combinations that make up a fragrance or a flavor. But important to understand that that is a key factor of why some people have these reactions almost immediately when they use certain products. And then record again of the RP's assessment of the report. In case you guys have not realized, I've said assessment of the report several times because it's very, very important to understand your piece in this when you get a report for consumer to reporting to FDA or record keeping. The reporting, again, I want everyone to be aware of that updated definition. So a lot of the clients and customers that we talk to, or brands and customers that we talk to, they did not realize there was an updated definition. A lot of them say, my product is not going to cause death. It's not going to cause someone to go to the hospital. It's like, yeah, but will it cause a rash? Will it cause a burn? Those are the things you need to start considering, is that they all now fall into that category of serious adverse event. The 15 business day deadline, you do not want to waste time going down to mailboxes or listening to messages trying to decipher which one's a serious adverse event. And then additionally, if you have not touched a MedWatch form, trying to figure out the MedWatch form the day that a report is due is not the best way to handle that type of reporting. FDA is only receiving serious adverse events through that email. So you have to be very careful how you send all this information over, right? You have very delicate information. You can't just be sending over in Google Drives and Dropboxes, right? And nor does FDA want you to send over in those type of spaces either, right? Protecting that information is very important. Records of, again, the RP's assessment of the report, so important. FDA has stated that they will allow statements of, from brands, from their responsible persons about the adverse event, the serious adverse event that happened, a statement denying the product had caused the serious adverse event through the investigation. So again, investigation happens, the review happens, you have the report, and you're allowed to submit this statement. So keep in mind how important that review and investigation step is when everybody is looking for how come this was reported, how come this was not reported. So we're going to get into a software demonstration. I want to show you the wonderful thing that our team has been able to do when creating this software. I will tell you there has been many people involved in the development of this software, mostly because there was such a need for it in industry. And I say that because there is I don't think anything like it on the market. I see a lot of teams that have built internal, intake systems to help manage adverse events, but most of you are doing it on Excel, right? Most of you are trying to handle the intake of these adverse events through customer service, and that is not the way to handle it, right? That's not the way to do it in a really great way. So we're going to walk through our adverse event management software. Again, we utilize this URL QR code very, very much so, because it is the fastest way to get information from your consumers about an adverse event. We have also learned since launching our software that consumers feel more inclined to give information when it's through a form and not talking to a person or writing it on a letter. I've actually not heard of one person recently, probably in the last 5 years, that's received a written letter of an adverse event. So very, very important to understand how this all will work with technology, with the system. So when you have our adverse event management software, you are provided a URL, a domain, a link, or a QR code specific to your brand, right? And you can update your brand logo and everything. This URL can be placed on your packaging, QR code on your packaging. We have some customers that use both. And it's really important to understand that this URL brings you to a page to report an adverse event. And that adverse event report will have all the necessary questions that you need to ask, mandatory questions, and I'll show you the report details, but it'll ask us all the mandatory questions you need to report to FDA, to record keep, but then additionally information you need to do your review and investigation. You're also able to add, people in your teams that need to receive notifications when an adverse event comes in. So very important that when a consumer puts a report in for an adverse event, that anyone on this email notification will directly get notified that an adverse event had been placed. So very crucial to act quickly, not panic, and have the ability to review and investigate when needed. If you have multiple brands, you can add them in here. So this is a made up brand, made up products. Everything here is for demonstration purposes only, but very important to understand you can manage multiple brands from here. We have huge customers that have one person managing this because it's that easy to do. So taking a very complicated problem and making it easy to manage through technology. As you'll see, all your cosmetic listings will be in the system. So these are going to be all your SPL documentations that you've already listed with FDA. And this will help you manage those listings, those active listings that you have already on market, right? And you'll be able to manage what type of adverse event happens for each of those products. So again, great post-market surveillance tool. We even have an export to Excel feature, which you can use to export to Excel each of those products. You can make charts about the changes in a product's adverse event, communication, and you can actually kind of almost use this as a tool for post-market surveillance. So we have for instance, a fruity body wash that we have had a supplier, we tech transferred to a new supplier, and all of a sudden we have 20 adverse event reports in the last week, right? So something changed with the supplier, and then also something changed with the product once it hit market. And those really will help you do your safety assessments, quarterly safety assessments. You're able to review how your products are doing on market. Also very, very beneficial to help if you can normalize rates, normalize incidental responses, right? So if a product is consistently causing people to turn red, a little red on its first use, not serious adverse event, but then you put a warning. After first use of this product, you can slightly turn red. After your third use, you're good to go, right? So things like that can really cut down the need for your team to constantly respond to those type of problems and reports that come in by knowing the incidental and normalize those rates, right, of what people are going to expect when they use the product. I know I spend a lot of time responding to the same question over and over again. I used to have these documented responses of certain products, so I would just know how to respond, right? But now you can track that here, and especially with new products, how many products you launch a year, it's important to keep track of that when you have the ability to do so. From a safety perspective as well, you'll also be able to understand the safety of your product once it hits mass market, right? So again, those 50 people RIPT studies, they're very helpful, but they do not show mass market, right? So you can say we sold over 3 million units of our fruity body wash and we had one adverse event report, right? I don't know how you get better data than that. I don't know how you can even show better data than that, but that is a really great post-market surveillance tool that, again, adds that extra layer of protection, extra layer of resource. One thing I will always say about products is that we like to believe that it's over as quality people once it kind of releases our hands and goes to market. But with these new adverse event regulations, it's not going to be that way anymore. We're going to have to continually monitor these products and make sure that the quality and safety of these products are at the standards of the brand. When you do receive a new adverse event, it will go directly to this portal. So anything that a consumer reports on your URL, scans your QR code, that instant, the report will show up on your side. Anyone in the email will get a notification, a report has been submitted from a consumer. And that way you can react immediately, right? You can know, is this a serious adverse event that needs my immediate attention, or is this a adverse event that we need to review, but does not need to have that immediate attention, right? And as those reports come in, you'll see they'll show the event type, they'll show the priority. You can even review them. So as you open them up, you'll see all the information that's collected from the consumer's name, their email address, their phone number, the product information, even the adverse event information, retailer information if needed as well. Everything is time-stamped. I cannot stress this enough. The report history is going to be so crucial, especially if you're reporting a serious adverse event to FDA. You want to show when you received this, when you responded, when you started your investigation. Now, again, if it just needs a review and somebody's calling to say, I had a slight rash, I turned a little bit red, but it's okay now, right? You can actually archive those reports, and those archived reports do not go too far. We do this on purpose so you can quickly grab them if you need to, provide them to FDA, or if you need to go back and assess reports of a certain product. They're very easily accessed as well. If it is a serious adverse event that requires more dedication and review, you can start the investigation, and that will lead you to your investigations tab. Now, it's very important to understand that the investigations tab is meant for that due diligence. It's meant for that additional information. And you can manage all of that through this platform. And I say that because you can even request documentation from the consumer. So for instance, the consumer gave you this huge report. They're talking about how the, cleansing scrub, caused an adverse event. They're talking about how the event happened. They broke out in a rash all over their body, went to the doctors, not going away with treatment, right? So it's like they went to the doctor, okay? What was the assessment? What exactly happened? So you actually can request those documentations from the consumer. So you can say, can we have the doctor's note? Can we have a doctor's assessment, right? If you have a template of certain questions you want to ask in addition to a certain product, you can upload those templates for the consumer to fill out. Anytime the consumer is requested of a documentation, right? You will have that in your report history. It will show you in your report history that you have reached out to the consumer, that you have reached out to the consumer to request that documentation. And again, it will timestamp it, it will show you, and it will have any notes that you need to know. So about the product causing the event, right? You can ask for images. Please show us a picture of your hair before and after that you said it's significant. Again, being able to upload all that information from the consumer side, requesting that consumer information. More importantly, you're allowed to upload all documents and images on your side. So if you have safety testing, you have micro testing, compatibility testing, all can be uploaded and stored in this system. When you report a serious adverse event to FDA, you're going to also need a copy of the label, right? So having that copy of that label available in this report as well. Cannot stress that enough, having everything in one place. And it becomes more important, right, as you get deeper into multiple adverse events, right? Keeping track of those, what was requested, what is still pending. You also are able to share these reports. So if you have to share with legal, like, here's where we are, like, is this a concern? Do we need to do a recall? You're able to share those report details with other departments, with global teams. My favorite feature is this zip folder, right? So you can download into a zip folder, have it protected in order to email to FDA if you need to report. But also zip folders are a great way to have everything documented in one place as well. The submit button, I will tell you, our submit button is probably the favorite of all of our current customers that use our AEM. You are able to zip all of the information. You're able to send a mail to yourself. So if you need to email all this information to yourself to review one more time, you also can download the zip. So very important to understand that this zip folder, once downloaded, will actually have the MedWatch form, which I'm going to open up here for you guys to see. It will have the MedWatch form already filled out for you. So think about all the time that I just said this MedWatch form is for drugs, it's for medical devices. It will take that consumer report and fill out all of that information for you. So date of event, the adverse event, describe the event or problem. And again, if you need to add more, you can actually edit this form. So we do all the hard work for you. We do all the filling out. We do everything you need for the MedWatch form, and also allow you to edit if needed. Now, I have talked to a lot of people in the industry, and I think the MedWatch form is the scariest part of all of this. Do I have all the information? Did I fill it out right? So we made sure to take care of that step for you. And again, archive reports, want to show everyone, they are not too far away. And I say this because FDA is going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to request a lot of information. They want brands and RPs to know they are looking for if everyone is doing the requirements under MOCRA. So it's very, very important that you have access to these reports, that you have access to them immediately when needed. And again, you can quickly view the reports, the archive reports, you can share, and you can download in a zip. When FDA used to audit us, we used to, at my previous factories, we would have everything in a zip folder or jump drive or anything, right? Just giving them the information that they're asking for. And this you can do very quickly. And I mean that with my whole heart. You can do it very quickly and provide and not have any type of issues. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that little demo. If you would like a longer demo and have more questions, I will be happy to schedule some time with you. Here's my email address, my personal work email address. So feel free to reach out and have some questions, longer demos, especially if it is requirement. You guys have different requirements or different things that you want to discuss specifically about how your brand manages adverse events. We also love seeing, what brands are doing right now, talking through of how we can help you in multiple different ways. So feel free to reach out, and especially if you have any questions about your current systems, what you're doing. We have not seen any real GMP things yet, but this I think will be a huge part of GMP, right? That record keeping part, understanding a larger scope, what that means to have records, intake system, SOPs, all of those things. I'm anxiously waiting to see December. I don't wish the year away, but a little bit, because I really would want to see what FDA is going to come out for GMPs. Also want you guys to mark your calendars. We have gotten huge requests to talk about retailers, what it means for MOCRA. So we are going to answer that request. We are going to hold what we like to call retail therapy, managing MOCRA compliance with beauty retailers. And I am very excited to present this with you guys and give you some insights of what we have seen in industry, what we have been hearing in industry, some public letters that have been posted from retailers, right? What they're expecting, and how you can protect yourself with your retailers. And adverse event management is going to come into huge play with your retailers, right? Because the last thing retailers want is any disruption, any bad press, any bad news about recalls or any public health concerns about products they sell on their shelves. So want you guys all to kind of mark your calendars, because this one is going to be big. This one's going to be fun. Love talking retailers, been working in retailers for 20 years. So hopefully you guys will have time to do that. So we're going to get some questions. I'm so happy I left time for questions. Those that are familiar with our webinar, we always go over with questions, but I definitely wanted to leave some time here. So let's get to some really good ones. Let's see. There's lots of questions about the label, right? So is there text or anything that we need to highlight on the label explaining the URL is for adverse events and for US customers only? So that's a great question. So we have not seen any guidance from FDA on how words or wording should be handled when it comes to contact information for adverse events on the label. Our amazing label team has worked with all of our customers to help make sure that there is proper wording, especially if you have, a label that's both for US and Canada and EU and UK, right? Like, how do we determine that this specific URL or QR code is for that US customer, is for MOCRA adverse events? So we have a great team that helps you with wording, especially when it comes to spacing. And we highly recommend putting some type of wording or text before the URL or before the QR code, much like you see in drugs, right? So if you pick up a sunscreen and it says questions or comments, things of that nature, right? We also have for adverse event scan below, things that will help make sure the consumer knows that this is for adverse events. And that is our biggest push, right? And kind of what I talked about earlier is we don't want the consumer trying to search where they have to report an adverse event, right? That frustration. I can't tell you how many times I try to look for customer service numbers and can't find them. And it leads to, different forms of frustration on the internet. So having clear statements, we are recommending are the best right now, but we have not, received any guidance from FDA. Again, I think there's still the wait from FDA, and hopefully we'll hear something soon from FDA. Moving on to some more questions. How do we understand which adverse events are serious and must be reported to FDA? So again, that serious adverse definition is your starting point. If it automatically falls inside of one of those check boxes, handle it as a serious adverse event. And I always err on the side of caution. If you are unsure, report to FDA. The last thing you want to do is hold something that is something you might consider a serious adverse event and not report and have FDA ask for that report. But those check boxes of serious adverse event definition is your place to start. Now, as I mentioned, as you do your reviews and your investigations, you can lead yourself to believe, okay, this is not really serious. This is the consumer's perception of serious because of what happened, but technically would not be classified, right, in a serious adverse event. And that is something that happens in that review and investigation part, which is so important. Many of you that have been in quality, right, and been involved in serious adverse events and even adverse events, right? The whole behind the scenes investigation is the most crucial part, right? That is where it all happens, that you can make that determination. So having a really strong understanding of those initial definitions and then having a process to collect the right information. I always give the example that I had a product that launched an aloe lotion, right? And we received a frantic adverse, call about a woman having a serious adverse event. She was in the hospital, right? In the hospital. She had serious rashes and infections all over her body. We stopped production. We recalled the product, right? Because that is the information we have. We later learned that this woman was allergic to aloe and did not realize aloe in the lotion was the same aloe plant that she was allergic to, right? So we did this massive change to our manufacturing, our recalls, the financial, right? Because of an isolated event with a consumer using a product that they had a known allergy for. Now, it's still a serious adverse event, right? We still report to FDA, but we have that information and report. So it doesn't escalate to a larger problem, right? It doesn't escalate to FDA wanting to recall the product or suspend a facility. And those are the pieces you need to kind of figure out during the investigation. I see a lot of questions about enforcement. Is it going to be delayed as there's not enough time for business to get all products compliant by December? So very important to note that this specific requirement, contact information on the label, had 2 years since the enactment date to come compliant. So MOCRA was passed, in 2022, and they gave you to 2024 to change your label. So they actually gave you more time than any other regulation. So anyone who is waiting right now, I hate to say it, but you probably should have had your labels updated months ago. And I say this because we did have 2 years as industry to comply with this compliance deadline. I do not see them pushing this back because they allowed 2 years. I highly recommend getting QR codes on your labels, getting URL links on your labels, anything you can do to get something on your label by the December 29th date. There's lots of people who have even put, over labeled, put sticker labels on there of like a QR code just to make sure they are compliant on this deadline. And I say that because we did have 2 years to comply with that. So again, I think it's really important to make sure if you're not familiar with MOCRA, you're not familiar with the timelines, that you look at them and make sure if you have any questions, you can come and always ask us. I also see a ton of questions about small businesses. So small businesses are held to the same requirements for adverse events. And I say this because the small business exemption that everyone hears about, you only are exempt from product listing and facility registration. Every other part of MOCRA you will need to be compliant with. One of our specialties is helping small businesses, small brands understand the implications of MOCRA, not become overwhelmed with these, new requirements, and how we can help solve them with our services, with our support, with our consulting. So, I love a good small business exemption. That's like, we want to keep beauty innovative. We want to keep beauty indie. We want the dream of being a big brand that sells for $800 million to a huge corporation. So we never want to stifle that, right? But there are the parts of MOCRA that are focused on safety and protecting public health that, regardless of the size of your business, you have to comply with. So again, I think it's really important to understand the only requirements that small businesses are exempt from are registration and listings. There is talk about GMPs having, some less stringent requirements around GMPs, but we will not know that until December. Lots of questions about hair loss and how you determine the extent and therefore whether it could be classified as serious. Again, my best example as someone with a lot of hair is what is significant to that person. So images of before, images of after. Medical experts, right, will even have a percentage of hair loss. Like if you have lost a certain percentage of hair visually or, measurable, that can be significant. And I think it's important that if there is a question of the significant part, is that you get experts, medical experts, right, involved in the process as well. And that is why it's important to have an intake system, because if you do not know to have these certain questions to ask. Give me a picture, give me a document, right? These are all the things that are going to come into play. We all know consumers can get a little crazy. Like I said, it is personal because it's physical, right? And people are extra sensitive when something goes wrong to their face, when something goes wrong to their hair, when something goes wrong to their appearance. So we have to be able to gauge that and to judge that and to be able to assess it in a way that is responsible on our brand side, right, as a responsible person, and then also on the requirement side, right? You never want to get have someone who's lost 90% of their hair and you don't report it because it wasn't significant from your standards, right? Have things to support it. And then again, I think it's really important for anyone who's not familiar with the updated definition that you guys go back and look and see those definitions so you can train your team, update your team. I hear so many people that, use their customer service or customer experience teams for adverse events, right? And that sometimes can be like a quick fix, not the forever solution, right? So having an understanding of not only those teams being under, because they still might receive adverse events through that network, right? In that type of regard. So you have to even train the customer service teams to know if it is a health related event, it goes directly to our quality team handling adverse event management. So very, very, very important to understand. Again, we are so excited about this software. Coming from quality, I can tell you quality people are rock stars. I think they get the most heat. They have the most people that are asking of them, like demanding of them information. And when we started to build the system, right, we think to ourselves, as a quality person, what keeps me up at night, what makes me, have tears on my pillow. And we try to figure out a way to make this really easy for teams of one, right, to manage. And I think it's very, very important to support our quality people out there, to give them the tools that they need, right, to be able to do their jobs. And I can't tell you how much Excel spreadsheets and Dropboxes are not the way to go for quality people. Quality really does need to be audited and handled correctly. And hopefully, anyone who wants a longer demonstration, I can't wait to show it to you because this is really, a piece of art. I like to say it for quality people to help manage all of this. Again, send your follow-up questions. We will get you to me to help or someone else who can help with any of your other questions. And it is so great to see everyone again. I'm so excited for our next webinars. We have a ton coming up for the rest of the year. And hopefully you guys learn a little bit of something every time that we meet. And again, thank you so much everyone for attending, and send those questions in.